Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, let's talk about that reporter who's been around from the BBC for over 35 years, Louis Theroux, and his connections to Jimmy Savile and others that he has no credibility for whatsoever. I mean, here he does an interview with a known pedophile who's been terrorizing people and apparently and allegedly involved in all sorts of other crimes, Savile. And he welcomes it into his house. He asks him if he needs a place to stay, and anytime he's in London, he should come to his house and stay. This is the kind of complete and total garbage you get from this guy. You know, the BBC and Theroux has been alleged to be involved in all sorts of shady dealings. The bottom line is apparently his father was a travel writer. His mother works for the BBC. These are all things I understand to be true. His father was an American. These kind of connections add up to a lot of questions and a lot of connections to intelligence agencies, which have been connected to all sorts of nefarious dealings. So when someone does the interview that he does, goes into investigations of this person and welcomes him in as a friend, is one of the most audacious and disgusting things that could happen. But he's very well known to do this. He constantly attacks his guests, as he did to me when I was on his show about 30 years ago, where after wasting my time for 12 hours playing games with me, not getting a penny for any of my time, while he makes a fortune off of rerunning his wild weekends over and over again, he even had the nerve to put out a book that attacked me of his wild weekends. I'm the first chapter there, and he writes a whole bunch of nonsense about me, and of course trying again to discredit me after I made his show and continue to make money. Of course, nobody in that book has seen a penny of it. I've got nothing from that book, even though I'm the first chapter, as well as everybody else in that book as far as I'm aware. So the whole idea is that this is the reality of this kind of reporting, and this kind of reporting is supported by whom? Well, the BBC, which a lot of people think has some sort of credibility, but it really doesn't. It has no credibility whatsoever. It's just another news outlet, and news really is just a fancy word for twisted entertainment. So they put out anything they want, they attack people who are their guests, they write nasty books about them, totally unfounded information, and this is something that Theroux does consistently. He recently did, in the last year or two, a report on Scientology and was working with a particular person there who was talking to him and exposing Scientology organization. And what did Theroux do? Theroux attacked him, stating that, he's one of them. He's one of them Scientologist types that we can't trust. I mean, you really have to wonder what's going on here, that he turns on these people. And you have to really wonder, what's the connection there? Is this another one of those alleged situations where you're bought off or working with other people to discredit them? So you act like this was a probe into Scientology, and really what it was an attack on a member who was left the actual church. So this is the kind of credibility you get from the BBC. Plain and simple, there is no credibility. They use and abuse their guests. And people they interview, you get absolutely nothing from it. They get rich from it. They have shows that run for 30 years. They write books they make consistent profits from, and you're left with nothing. Not only that, they can't even do nice things to support you or promote you or bring an interesting person to the public. No, that's not good enough for them. They have to go out there and print false information to attack you, and they will even attack you while you're on screen. So it's unbelievable how they manipulate and do things to discredit you every single path. On every single inch of the way that is out there, they are discrediting you. So everybody should be very aware of these kind of discreditable media people, which seems to be most of them. The media is full of this, and certainly Louis Theroux has no credibility whatsoever. He's done a lot of nasty things. Secondly, why does this jokester who looks like Charlie Brown with bad shirts and a bowl on top of his head haircut all of a sudden start interviewing people like terrorists and going to Nigeria, I believe? He's interviewing all sorts of people gaining information. For whom? Who is he really working for? This is a guy who did a bunch of shows on pornography and wrestling and all the other things that was actually told to me that, this wrestling thing was an interview he did that basically got out of hand. Well, it didn't get out of hand. Well, he's insinuating that that was all staged anyway. And of course it was. They threw him around the ring. They did all this stuff. This was all part of the little game he plays, acting like this is news, that this is a real interview. It's not. It's entertainment. And it's as simple as that. And it should be treated like that. And the people that he interviews on these so-called shows should be paid properly as per the Screen Actors Guild. But you don't get that. You get used and abused, and they repeat these things endlessly, making money after money from it. It's amazing the kind of con artist game that these people use their guests. So anyone who's getting involved with any media, and it doesn't necessarily have to be him, all the media plays this game. I was treated pretty poorly by CNN as well. So the whole idea is that CNN played similar type games and lied to me by telling me that it was going to be on a particular type of show when it wasn't. I even got a videotape of that show. It was supposed to be on the American Experience, and then they put me on another one. So the whole idea, of course, is that this is the kind of twisting they do. And if you work with the media, they're going to have all sorts of problems like this. They have no background in this. Right off the bat, Louis came out in his little bookie and said that how he thought all UFO stuff was kind of a joke. And of course, we now know 30 years later how all this stuff is pretty much accepted and proven by tens of thousands of people who've had personal and impersonal experiences out there. Whether it's seeing something in the sky, or seeing something close, or actually having some sort of physical contact, we all know that the reality of UFOs and extraterrestrials is pretty much confirmed 100%. Of course, he didn't know any of that and could really care. He did absolutely no research before coming to talk to me, never asked to see any of my literature, never talked about. But, I spent 12 hours talking with him, and he was more sympathetic about the poor aliens that we were protecting people from. Those who were raping and abducting people. He was very sympathetic. We should have checked him for an alien implant. I mean, the kind of bogus nonsense you get from these pretenders who want to make money off of you is really pathetic. And they ultimately try and harm you and discredit you while they fill their pockets with money in the process. It's very sad. And if you think that for any reason the BBC, which they like to say, because we think of the old movies, this is the BBC, reports from the continent. Well, all this stuff is bogus as well. The BBC is just a news organization, period. Do they have any great credibility? Are they any better than anybody else? Well, of course not. There's no great credibility with the BBC. And of course, the BBC has been alleged to be working with and cooperating with a lot of negative groups, particularly the intelligence agencies, which they work for, or so it is alleged. So they certainly are filtering information to them, it appears. So all of this is what most news medias do. And here's a reporter that goes around and tricks people so they can get stories out of it and then defames them on top of it. I mean, this is unbelievable, and people should be very aware what Louis Theroux is and what his game is. And nobody should really accept any interview from him. And if you accept an interview from any media, well, be extremely careful, particularly the video media, the actual interviews you get in terms of videos, because they're going to shoot lots of film and they're going to show a few minutes. That's the nature of TV. Now, if you're on some sort of podcast or something, you probably have a chance and will probably not be edited to express your views, maybe even for hours as some of these podcasts go on for. But when you get involved in video or televised news, they're all about minutes and seconds. So they're going to cut down anything you say, any film they take is going to be cut down the way they want to. And, obviously everybody kind of understands that to fit time frames and other things. There's a lot of excuses for that. But ultimately, it is not a good excuse. Ultimately, they are using and abusing you. And the bottom line is that you have to be very, very careful because they're going to cut and paste to the image that they want to put out there and how they want to see you. But, that's bad enough doing that, cutting something down for time or to fit into a little block, whatever it may be. When somebody goes out and actually attacks you in print later is the epitome of it. Now, he even had the nerve to contact me about 4 or 5 years ago to try and talk with me yet again. Then he contacted me about a year or so ago, I'm not sure of these dates, wanting during the COVIDs to get me on the air again to talk to for free. Plain and simple. And I told him to begin with that I don't talk for free. So the whole idea is that this is what he tried to pull to get you on the air to yet again. And what was his jive? Well, he even was, as I allege, he even was trying to set me up with troublemakers that were trying to harass me when he was trying to set up another fake interview. For what particular reason? So he deliberately tried to harass and set me up, as I allege, when he was trying to get me to go to an interview. For what reason? What did he have to talk about? He already discredited me, wrote a nasty book calling me a Satanist, all the things that he did. So he went further to do this. And of course, I didn't even bother to read his books until about a year or two ago and found out that this was in there. I mean, I wasn't really interested in anything from him. He's a pinhead. He has nothing to say. He has no background. He's not educated. He doesn't read anything. Nothing of any value. He's not, certainly knows about his subject matter. And he's involved in everything. So what was the point of trying to physically interview me? It wasn't a phone call. And then, of course, I told him different things on the phone briefly to tie him in, and he repeated these in his book wrong. So he put all together wrong information. All the stuff is in there is distorted and incorrect. He goes and tries to identify me with other UFO groups. When was I involved in any other groups? And who wants to be involved with those people? The plain and simple situation is that it was nothing more than a giant discrediting that he did in his book. For what particular motive? Well, the motive was that he was as I allege, he is working with negative forces. He's working with people that wanted to harass me, and that's what he did. I mean, his book is a prime example of that. Claiming he never asked a question about it. He claimed that I didn't tell him things. He didn't know anything. He even states in his interview there that of who somebody was when they weren't that person. He knew absolutely nothing, had no data. This was a fluff story to waste 12 hours of my time, not pay me, and put together garbage. And that's exactly what he did. So when he does this with everybody, and when he gets a chance, I'm sure he'll write another scathing book against this Scientologist guy who was there helping him. But he had to attack him as well. And this is the kind of reporting, the kind of people that are supported that you're going to get from the BBC in particular. But all the news people do this because they know nothing and they're part of the bigger picture of trying to discredit good people who are trying to do important work in this world. So be aware of that. Understand what this guy is. Understand that this is a guy who investigated a known pedophile with years of abuse that went on and treated him like his buddy. He opened his home to him. And don't think I made this up. Look at the interview there. I don't know if he's taken it down or changed it, where he interviewed Jimmy Savile and invited him to stay in his house. Anytime you're in London, buddy, make sure you come over here. Yeah. Come and stay in my house with my children and my wife and, bring some kiddies with you. Oh, the whole idea is this is revolting to anybody who watches that carefully. So how can this guy have any credibility whatsoever? And if he's not credible in this story, which is so offensive, how is he credible in any story? Well, he isn't. And this is very typical of the media, and people need to wake up. Until next time.